student population. The Chinese Undergraduate Student Association has over 400 students in it. And a lot of these students are coming from very affluent families in China, and they have a lot of opportunities to invest. They're already investing in their education. And the trend had been 10 years ago that they would stay here and they would get jobs, they would potentially start businesses here. But we're losing those personal connections. I've been in a lot of talks with international studies programs, and they're trying to get Chinese students specifically more integrated in student life. But the fact is that a lot of the American students don't know how and aren't really interested in creating really sustainable relationships with Chinese people. So we need to recognize the potential for investment and be willing to engage in really meaningful dialogue, to understand that though we have cultural differences, we have really ways that we can mutually benefit and mutually gain. And we feel that because there's not a big or any real Michigan presence at this World Expo, this is a really big opportunity that we're missing to engage in such an important dialogue. So, going back to kind of bring this full circle to what Charles was talking about, we know that the future of a really strong bilateral relationship with China is through forging more dynamic personal relationships. There's no better way to get somebody to invest in your economy if you actually can put a name to a face and actually know who this person is. I had the opportunity to engage in a really strong program to facilitate these exchanges called Project IMUS. It's a Harvard program that was started about 3 or 4 years ago by some Harvard students that wanted to engage in just what I talked about, dialogue with Chinese people, getting young people, particularly students, which is the future of world affairs, together in the same room, talking about issues that matter. And so for 12 days, I had the opportunity to engage with some of the brightest students from the United States and from China. There was 30 of us, 15 Chinese students, 15 U.S. delegates at Tsinghua University in Beijing. And it was amazing to see in that short amount of time how close the bonds that we were able to forge between each other. We had a lot of difficult conversations. I represented Michigan State, and my state of Michigan, and had real conversations about the rhetoric and the feeling we have towards China and our microeconomy, and resentment, really, for the Chinese economy and by transition, the Chinese people as well. But in those 12 days, I learned a lot about the social and economic forces that are going on in China, the opportunities for us to see that though we have people displaced by globalization in Michigan, there are people displaced by globalization in China. And there are very cool examples of how we're working on similar projects to try to curb those effects in Michigan and in China. I'll give you an example. One example is I think last year Jennifer Granholm was talking about trying to create better broadband internet and wireless access for rural populations in Michigan. Well, there's such a huge rural population in China. The demographics are different, but the idea is the same. China Mobile is engaging in a huge campaign to try to get broadband internet access more widespread in the western provinces to try to bring these people into the economic growth that's happening in the eastern coast. These are ways for us to be able to work together, but the only way we can facilitate that is to create better, stronger personal relationships on a broader basis. And I actually had the opportunity, this is very cool, if you see this picture right here, the guy in the middle, does anybody recognize who that is? Okay, you probably can't see. It's Jet Li. It was probably the coolest experience I've ever had. In fact, I almost missed this meeting. But he was talking about his One Foundation, which is it's like an NGO trying to get students, or not just students, but people to do pro bono work to try to get back to the community. And I asked him, I said, in this global economy, it just seems that I can see, because of my time in China and the studies that I've done and the people that I've met, that there are so many ways for us to benefit from talking with each other and exchanging, but it seems that we're doomed to be enemies. How do we end up learning from each other? And he told me that he spent a lot of time traveling abroad and forging international relationships, and that's really the key. You have to invest in people, and you have to invest in dialogue between people so that they can forge the bonds that are going to lead us into a positive future. So how can we do this? How can we create this on a broader scale? I think if I knew all those answers, I probably would be making a lot more money. But I think that work that is being done, like at these places, at the Confucius Institute. When did this start here? I want to say 2008. These are really important ways in which we need to start getting education about Chinese people and about Chinese culture at a much younger age, in K through 12 education. I know there are a lot of schools in Lansing that are exploring Chinese language programs. In fact, some of them are actually implementing them in their elementary schools right now. We also need to do more of facilitating better exchange programs. Michigan State does a really good job of sending students abroad. I think the recent number for last year was like about 4,000 students went to study in different places in the world, and I think that's awesome. But what are they learning? And more importantly, how can we aggregate what they're learning? Charles and I got to take part in our first summer, or my first summer in China, in a study abroad program, and I got a lot out of it, and it made me want to go back. And now I'm going back again to reconnect with the people that I've met over the years, but also to meet new people and forge new relationships. How do you bottle that up, though? How do you bottle up that interest? There were 22 of us that went to Tianjin, China that summer, and Charles and I and two other students really are the only ones that I think really had the difference and wanted to escape the program itself and come back and try to integrate other people into our experience. So I think part of that is using social technology, using the internet, having students become actively blogging and trying to, in real time, describe their experiences back to the population at home. In exchange programs, we send students to China and then they come to the United States and to Michigan State and to, I'm sure Wayne State has programs like this as well. But are they interacting? Are the students that are living each other's lives actually in real time talking with each other, experiencing it? With technology today, there's no reason why we can't have these exchanges happening. So we need to try to consider how do we make this something real. So that's why we are trying to do the Shanghai Exposed project, which is, for all the reasons I just described, really important for us to share our experience with the Michigan population. We're so far concentrating on MSU because that's who we know and that's hyper-localized and it's been easier, but we'd like to include you. We'd like to include people from all over Michigan, because the only way that we're really going to get an advantage with China and use their economic growth and their cultural growth and societal growth to our advantage and to the world's advantage is if we start connecting each other to our common experiences. So we started this website. It's called shanghaiexposed.com. And so you'll see this is the two of us. This is at the Bund last summer when Charles came to visit me. And we're going to be going back. I can't wait to do it. But what this website is, it's going to facilitate, it's going to be our weblog for the summer. We're looking for better ways to market this to strategic populations that will actually really want to read this. We think young people are going to be interested in some of the fun content we're going to be putting up. We want to make it interactive. We're going to be putting up polls that will be kind of fun for people back at home. You know, like what would you like to see Dan eat this week? You know, on the street, because I'll eat anything. But also, we want people to be commenting. We don't want this to just be a site that just kind of sits on the net and is just a glorified journal for us. We want people to be commenting and asking questions. We're going to be profiling the business people and the students that we're going to be meeting on a daily basis. And our position is going to allow this, is going to facilitate the meeting of a lot of people from a lot of different places in the world, and mostly, obviously, Chinese people. So we want to put those stories that we're learning on this website and to facilitate some kind of exchange between the home population back here in MSU and Wayne State and Confucius Institutes, and to facilitate that also among students of K through 12, of the K through 12 age, so that they're starting to ask questions about Shanghai, about the World Expo, about what we're learning and how we can transfer that knowledge back home to our, not only our economic benefit, but really to our cultural and social benefit, which is kind of an equation that really equals out to better things for all of us. So we really appreciate your time, and we just kind of like to open up for some dialogue and maybe just talk about I don't want to structure it too much, but just talk about ways in which maybe we can use our experience to better benefit you here at Wayne State at this Confucius Institute, to get your message out, and to also facilitate some of the things we talked about, like better, more structured and beneficial exchange programs. So anyways, thank you very much, and we'd like to kind of